AI systems fail differently. No error codes, just subtle drift and hallucinations. Traditional observability wasn't built for that. So, how do you actually trust AI in production? Shahar Azulay, CEO of Groundcover, is here to break it down for us. Shahar, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
The interesting thing is that we have been talking to Groundcover for a very long time. We always make a joke that, hey, you're going after the big guys. But the way Groundcover is evolving as the market is evolving is also exciting. So talk a bit about how do you see Groundcover in this AI, agentic AI-centric world?
I think what's happening to observability is fascinating, right? It's changing from something that was more post-production based. I used to kind of investigate downtime and troubleshooting with observability, and I needed a lot of telemetry already to kind of do it, to something which is just pivotal, just the grid of truth for any AI operated agents on top of it, right? Whether if I'm investigating root cause analysis or I'm building code with my agents, I need context from production that observability can provide to build better, to troubleshoot better. So I think observability is becoming more critical and more part of basically the operating system for the agentic SDLC, if you want, right? People are building code with it, troubleshooting code with it, testing code with it. So it's just becoming more important, and that's really fascinating. It's going to be an exciting year.
Can you also talk about what did you folks announce here at KubeCon?
So Groundcover has always been different, right, in how we operate. We operate on top of a system which is very fit to the AI era. We operate on a bring your own cloud architecture, which basically means that we don't store our customers' telemetry. We host it in their cloud premises, privately secured, and we're fit for data abundance in a very cost-effective way, right? Customers can have more telemetry, more high-fidelity telemetry to troubleshoot and so on. This is exactly what AI needs as well, right? So we've announced this KubeCon, our engine mode, which is basically our agentic experience inside Groundcover. You can either operate with our agent throughout the platform, navigate, build dashboards with, troubleshoot with, or you can delegate using the agent to other agents used today. If you're using Cursor to build code, you can delegate from the agent mode in Groundcover and get all the context from production into your other AI native stack, right? So Groundcover is basically becoming agent to agent aware, communicative to both human users, but both agent users. And you can also augment your operations with our agent through a lot of different operations that the experience provides. So it's kind of taking what we've built so far, which was how you store more telemetry privately, securely, but also cost effectively, and allow agents now to operate on top of it for different tasks.
When we talk about observability, of course, there is general observability that we have been talking about for, and now when you're running AI workloads, that's, we are talking different observability. And, of course, AI cannot fix what it cannot see. Can you talk about what new challenge AI workloads agents are posing for players who do want to just know what is going on in the system?
I think what's happening to telemetry is really interesting because on one hand, there's more telemetry, as you mentioned, right? Monitoring AI workloads is very different. The classical three pillars of, logs, metrics, APM, they're now changing because they don't fit anymore. It's not the same as monitoring a distributed trace in the legacy microservices world to monitoring 50,000 spans in an AI workflow that uses 500 LLM calls a minute, right? It's different. It requires a different product. You can't sample the data in the same way. It's not deterministic. There's a lot of different changes in how we monitor AI, and Groundcover is spearheading what is called AI observability, right? How we monitor agents, how we monitor AI workflows. But again, it's kind of two pulls to the same direction. More telemetry to monitor these things, more sensitive telemetry because my customers are now operating in front of my AI features as a company, right? And the data that my observability system now stores about monitoring these agents is much more sensitive than before. It might be even customer prompts, right? So it's more sensitive, more high cardinality, plus I need it for more use cases. I want to use the monitors from my AI agents to operate then something else that helps me build these agents, right? And kind of fix them. And I want to write evals that are based on AI to assume how fast and good they operate. So it's kind of two different pulls to the same direction. Groundcover is building both the AI observability product of what it means in 2026 to monitor AI, but both how you store it, how you consume it, how you interact with this telemetry throughout your stack so it's meaningful and useful.
Okay, observing, that's all fine. But can you also talk about failures? How are agentic or AI failures different from, we can use the term traditional failures, and what is ground cover doing to once again bring better visibility?
So the interesting thing about it is that there's a lot of things that are happening in non-deterministic path of that causes problems in how you treat errors, right? Before we used to thinking about, I have an API, right? There's multiple use cases on how to operate the API. It has variables, it can, go into different paths, right? But eventually it's pretty deterministic given, a state, and it's being called 1,000 times a second. Maybe I want to sample, 0.5% of it, which is most of the industry, that's what we do to maintain a reasonable budget. And I will catch that error, right? If it's coming once in, 1,000 times, I will catch it if I sample correctly. Sampling errors and figuring out what is an error in AI is complicated both on how I store data and how I figure out what the data means, right? Even if there's a clear error, it might be so non-deterministic and rare that sampling will never find it, right? I might miss on a very prominent use case, but just because the cardinality now spanned into a trillion different options that the AI model can go in, I will not be able to fix that very important customer journey. And also in some cases, the answer looks perfectly valid, right? Our simple world of API status codes and, things that were more very deterministic of, 200 okay means okay. Now it's not. I have to run AI as a judge on top of it to figure out what this entire flow means. The flows are wider, so it can be great here and fail 2 minutes later, right? We're talking about 2-hour sessions sometimes. What does it mean to make sure to validate that the entire session is healthy? So it's both non-fit to how we used to thinking about data and sampling it and kind of collecting it, and both, even if I collect it, I have to use AI as well to make sure it makes sense.
One more thing that is unique about ground cover is that you folks use eBPF, at the kernel level. So you are not relying on instrumentational at some point. But can you also talk about what your, AI agents, through agent mode see that traditional instrument dependent systems can see?
So the interesting thing about eBPF is that, there's the traditional approach, as you say, you can instrument code and you can use eBPF. There's already an advantage to eBPF. We support both, of course, but there's already an advantage because your team might not be proficient enough. You miss some blind spots. There's things you can't instrument, and eBPF kind of sees everything, right? But when it comes to AI, it's the basically the foundation for autonomy, right? The code I'm writing isn't been written by me anymore, right? It's been written by my agents that don't think like me when it comes to instrumentation, right? Someone has to create the loop of data flowing from code being shipped to production back to the coding agent so they can make better decisions on how to ship next. eBPF is kind of that foundation of autonomy. The agents can monitor themselves without being dependent in anything, right? Everything is covered, whether it's AI written or human written, it's covered in the same way. So I can feed that high fidelity data back to agents so they can make better decisions on how to build next. So we see it as kind of the betting for autonomy, right? If I want to make sure that my SDLC pipeline becomes more and more autonomous with AI, I have to have something kind of completely out of band, completely agnostic that monitors my production, right? And eBPF is an important part of it.
Now, as of course, organizations are moving AI from pilots, most actually pilots fail, but as they move from pilots into production, from your perspective, what capabilities are absolutely required to build trust and accountability into those systems?
So I think without a very trusted telemetry system, you cannot ship these things with confidence, right? Because it's hard to say if they're working on one end, and again, it's hard to make sure that you run fast enough. I think the interesting thing is that if a year ago, you would mostly be worried about downtime, right? I'm shipping the agent out there, and me and my competitors are both shipping AI features, but theirs is more reliable, right? Then my engineers wake up at night, open an observability platform, it should be reliable. You were most focused about that. Right now, it's moving to ROI to your customers. The other competitor has a more rich telemetry betting to build the agent faster, to release more AI workload features into their customers. They have more production telemetry to make better decisions on what to ship and how to build it. So it's becoming very very kind of clear that if you don't have a very secured and very data abundant kind of way to store telemetry, you will not be able to ship fast enough. So we see customers kind of being very concerned about that, and observability again is an important part of all of that.
I want to go back to agent mode. Can you talk about what kind of use cases you have seen where either the beta setters or the production user testers, they were actually impressed that, hey, we can see what we cannot see earlier?
Interestingly, right, the agent mode is a pull that we feel from our customers like significantly from the past 6 to 9 months. Since we released the MCP server in groundcover, basically all of our customers are consuming our telemetry through MCP, which is great on one hand, but on the other, they're basically building what agent mode should have given them, right? They're in their coding agent trying to fix problems, and they're consuming telemetry to make decisions. Agent mode is basically the ability to both stay inside the platform, right, and troubleshoot with the AI assistant that can now sift through huge volumes of telemetry and make very complicated analyses that you as a human just can't. And on the other hand, it can also kind of delegate information to your agents in a very constructed way that is better than MCP through the platform itself, right? So if our customers used Cloud before to query data using MCP, now they can use the agent mode and delegate to Cloud in a very structured way and see the results back in the observability system. So we're becoming like from just the system of record also to the ability to control my AI fleet and make sure that I'm coding right, solving problems, and I understand what's going on. So it's a very interesting kind of pull that we felt from the market. Agent mode has been tested with enterprises for a few months now, in our customer base, and we see these use cases tremendously valuable. The adoption is phenomenal, which we'll love to see.
And how or where does agent mode fit into the rest of the ground covers observability stack?
It's basically part of everything that we do. The platform is becoming agentic in any sense. The agent is aware to every part of the platform itself. Everything is a context that you can pass, kind of unliterally to the agent. It can use this context from within the platform. It's running close to the data. It queries the data privately. So it's basically kind of embedded in everything that you do. You can communicate with groundcover differently now through agent-to-agent communication. So the agent is more than a chatbot kind of bolted into the platform, right? It's part of how we think that groundcover should kind of coexist with your other agents. So it's kind of everywhere in everything that you can do, whether you're using the UI or whether you communicated with it somewhere else.
And as organizations like all the brownfield deployment, they are just bolting AI into the backend. What kind of nightmare is creating for their teams, platform team, SRE teams, ability teams? And do you feel that approach is right, or what would, if they come and ask you, should be the right approach?
I mean, it's a fun transient, right? To say I have data, even if I'm an external vendor, querying groundcover or Datadog or whatever, right? I can build AI workflows that query the data and make decisions. It's a very interesting transient. It just shows how much value there is in it, but it's not going to last from a perspective of who owns the data will eventually be able to create better value and more cost-effective value. For example, groundcover's agent mode will soon control dynamically what the eBPF sensor is collecting. So if you have an incident, for example, and I want to just collect higher cardinality data for the next 15 minutes to allow the agent to troubleshoot, then the agent will be able to dynamically collect the data, control the data collection, and transform it basically to fit what it wants to troubleshoot right now. Right? This entire connection between agent control and the collection is exactly what you can do with a bolted-on AI platform that assumes the data is there. Right? Most of the customers don't have quality data. Most of the customers don't have quality data that fits the current incident, and this data is statically built and not non-dynamic. Right? It's built on dashboards and monitors. They're predefined. Specific use cases they learned over time to investigate. It's not dynamic and wide enough like AI needs. So a vendor that won't be able to control both the collection and the root cause analysis through the same AI platform is just going to provide less value, and to be honest, less cost-effective value. It will have to sift through huge volumes of telemetry instead of making very kind of intelligent decisions. And that's where we're going, right? The agent mode will be part of the collection itself as well.
These days, when we talk about AI, especially if you look at the geopolitical crisis going on, there is a growing demand for, of course, data sovereignty, cloud sovereignty, AI sovereignty. What role can ground cover play in actually enable that kind of sovereignty?
Basically, we see ourselves enabling enterprises to adopt AI more safely, right? The major concern about AI is who's going to use it and what's data is going to be, moved through there. Who's processing the data? Who's training on this data, right? Enterprises are very concerned about that. Groundcover's entire approach since the beginning was a bring your own cloud data plane. Basically, we don't own the data. We store it privately, and even AI is operated on top of the Bedrock, Vertex, basically the hyperscalers AI connection of the customer. So it's their tokens, it's their AI models running in their VPC. So even though we provide all these rich experiences, they're not going out to anywhere else. So if you want to adopt AI, if you want to troubleshoot with AI, you don't have to be concerned about data privacy, about data sovereignty, about data security even, right? Kind of shipping maybe PII data to a vendor that is not necessarily, aware of what it's getting, right? Maybe you didn't intended that to monitor the customer's prompts right now that investigate something inside your application. They can even punch in information there that you might not have wanted to store as a vendor. So this entire motion of bring your own cloud just gets more emphasized with AI. The data is very private, very confident, basically, to the customers themselves.
We are here at the event. You folks have booths, so you're also interact with a lot of folks, but you also interact a lot with your customers already. Sometimes agent mode is kind of response to what they wanted. What are some of the pain points that teams shared with you that they face when it comes to, of course we touched about that, but I want to hear their perspective through you. We are like, this is the challenge that we face and we are looking for solutions. What do you hear often?
We saw a lot of interesting examples where, customers take screenshots from groundcover and paste them in Cloud, for example, and, say, here's a production problem, let's fix it, right? This is exactly the situations where you're saying, okay, telemetry matters to different use cases, but we haven't provided, the infrastructure for them to use it. So we saw that. We saw a lot of usage in MCP. We saw a lot of complicated infrastructure to application problems in Kubernetes, for example, which a lot of our customers are using. That is really, really hard to solve if you're not a power user, right? If you don't know how to use groundcover or Datadog as a power user and investigate, multiple places in logs, traces, and correlate data, those guys can solve it, but maybe you don't have, a power user in your team. Now you do, right? With agent mode, it's like a power user SRE in your team that just knows the groundcover structure better, that can help you out. So it's all these use cases that we saw over the years, right? That people are doing, and that's why the pull that we feel is so strong. Just, give us, the ability to use AI to observe the telemetry and make decisions with the telemetry.
Now it's almost March is over. We are here at KubeCon. Last week was NVIDIA GTC. Of course, we will talk about it when the things are ready, but just tease us what else is groundcover working on that we can expect from you.
So we're working to basically lead the market when it comes to AI observability. You're going to see a lot of releases from us this year that are going to be very, very modern, how we interact with all your tools, from, ticketing systems like Linear to the ability to troubleshoot and build like automated workflows behind the scenes with AI. That's a lot of our focus. We're also expanding our legacy observability platform, if you want to more features like profiling and more data sources that will basically serve the AI agents with just more telemetry to solve problems. We just released our self-serve experience end-to-end, so customers can enjoy that. We're continuing to expand it. The product is fully self-served, even though the infrastructure is bring your own cloud and very unique. So there's a lot of great things coming this year from groundcover.
Shahar, thank you so much for joining me. Of course, talk about agent mode, but I really love the way you talked about the challenges that teams face when it comes to observability and how groundcover is once again leading and solving them. Once again, thanks for your insight and I look forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you. Great to be here again.